Can you help me out with a subscription? I'd really appreciate it.
Box office legend Wu Jing teams up with action superstar Jason Statham to battle prehistoric ocean behemoths in the sci-fi action blockbuster. Meg 2, The Trench, 2023. 65 million years ago, Earth was a brutal battlefield where only the strongest survived. When we think of apex predators, the Tyrannosaurus Rex comes to mind. But there was a creature even more terrifying, one that could swallow a T-Rex whole, the Megalodon, ruler of the ancient seas. Even today, some believe these monstrous sharks still lurk in the darkest depths of the ocean, waiting to resurface. In the Philippine Sea, a cargo ship is illegally dumping toxic waste when deep-sea rescue expert Jonas Taylor sneaks aboard. Hiding in a shipping container, he captures photographic evidence of the operation. But just as he's about to slip away, a caged parrot squawks, alerting the crew. Thinking fast, Jonas blinds his pursuers with a camera flash, knocks out a few guards, and makes a run for it. As he sprints through the ship, more crew members close in. Cornered with nowhere to go but the open ocean, Jonas turns to face them. Calm and collected, he announces that they're all under arrest for illegal dumping, before flipping them off and diving straight into the water. The crew isn't worried. They're 300 kilometers from the nearest shore. Even an Olympic swimmer wouldn't stand a chance. But Jonas isn't reckless. He knows his team is right on schedule. Moments later, a helicopter skims the surface, its doors sliding open. Timing it perfectly, Jonas grabs hold and is whisked to safety, bringing the incriminating evidence with him. Meanwhile, at the Mana 1 deep-sea research station, scientist Zhang Juming is testing a next-generation diving suit capable of crushing solid rock with a single punch. Tonight marks the Institute's 10-year anniversary, and as its director, Juming delivers a speech about his lifelong dedication to ocean exploration, carrying on the legacy of his father and sister. The team has been developing an advanced submersible designed to reach an unprecedented depth of 7,600 meters into the Mariana Trench. It's a mission unlike any before. Later that night, Juming enters a massive sea pen inside the facility, home to a captive megalodon named Heike. Spectators gather, placing bets on how long he'll last before getting eaten. Jonas, watching from the control room, warns Juming, "Megs can't be tamed. To them, you're just a snack." But Juming believes he has a special bond with Heike. Blowing a training whistle, he signals the massive predator, demonstrating its obedience. At first it works. Heike circles him without attacking. But the illusion of control shatters when the Meg suddenly lunges. Juming barely escapes in time, proving Jonas right. The next morning, the deep-sea expedition begins. Juming, Jonas, and Jonas's teenage niece, Meiying, arrive at mission control as two submersibles prepare to descend into the trench. Unbeknownst to them, Heike has broken free. Smashing through its containment barrier, the Meg vanishes into the open ocean. As the submersibles dive past 5,180 meters and approach the thermocline, a near impenetrable temperature barrier separating the layers of the ocean, everything seems to be going smoothly, until Jonas notices something alarming. Meiying has stowed away on board. Furious, he orders an immediate return to the surface. But before they can ascend, an enormous shadow emerges from the depths. It's Heike, and it's not alone. Megalodons shouldn't be able to cross the thermocline, yet here it is, coming straight for them. With no time to spare, the team's only option is to dive even deeper. The submersibles accelerate, narrowly escaping as Heike's jaws snap shut just behind them. They break through to the lower depths, but their relief is short-lived. Switching to low-frequency lighting to avoid detection, the team presses forward. But Heike is relentless, pursuing them through the trench. Just as the defense system comes online, something even worse appears. More Megs. One of them is twice the size of Heike, a true behemoth unlike anything they've ever seen. The team stares in shock. Megalodons are supposed to be solitary hunters. So why are they hunting in a pack? Something is very, very wrong. The sudden gathering of sharks wasn't random. They were drawn to something. But Juming remained calm. With their submersibles protected by the deterrent system and oxygen levels stable, retreat wasn't an option. Instead, they decided to follow the swarm and uncover what was really going on. The two subs tailed the sharks into the depths of the ocean. Dark, mysterious, and mesmerizing. The deeper they went, the more they became entranced by the breathtaking world around them, momentarily forgetting the dangers lurking in the abyss. As Heike and the other megalodons circled one another, their erratic behavior finally made sense. This was mating season. Then their scanners detected something unusual. At the very bottom of the trench, a massive underwater facility appeared on their screens. Switching to full-spectrum imaging, they saw it wasn't just a pressure station. It had a power plant, advanced equipment, and multiple high-tech installations. The realization hit them hard. How much money and effort had gone into building this secret base? Just then, sonar picked up another submersible approaching. Deep beneath the thermal layer, an illegal mining operation was underway. Inside one of the subs, a bearded man named Monty oversaw his crew, barking orders to plant explosives along the seabed. But as he reviewed the area, he noticed something troubling. Two unfamiliar subs closing in. Then it clicked. Jonas. Monte didn't hesitate. He activated the detonator. The explosion rocked the ocean floor, triggering a massive landslide. The sheer force wiped out Monte's own workers, but he didn't care. A wall of rock came crashing down, slamming into Jonas's team and threatening to bury them alive. Monte barely had time to react before his own sub was hit. The violent shockwaves sent his vessel spinning. As the trench collapsed, a mushroom cloud of debris erupted from the seafloor, completely shattering the thermal barrier. Chaos was unleashed. Jonas's sub was tossed around like a toy, systems failing one after another. Above them, an entire mountain ridge crumbled, and Juming's sub was swallowed by the debris. At mission control, the base lost all contact with them. A rescue mission was their only hope, but the rescue sub had already been sabotaged. Stranded on the ocean floor, Jonas and his crew were running out of oxygen fast. They diverted power to the heating system to survive the freezing temperatures, and after a tense struggle, finally re-established contact with headquarters, only to hear the worst news. There was no rescue coming. With no other choice, Jonas made the call. They had to walk. Suited up in emergency dive gear, the team set off toward the secret underwater base they had just discovered. At a staggering depth of 7,620 meters, every step was a fight against crushing pressure and dwindling air. Before they'd gone far, they ran into Juming and his crew, alive. Against all odds, they had survived the collapse. Realizing they had the same destination, they pushed forward together. Meanwhile, the team pressed on through a deep-sea valley filled with bioluminescent creatures. Lance, the youngest member, fell behind, mesmerized by a color-shifting octopus. Suddenly, the silt behind him exploded. A blood-curdling scream echoed through their comms. Then, silence. Lance's helmet floated eerily in the water. At this depth, survival without a suit was impossible. The reality hit them hard. Lance was gone, but there was no time to mourn. They had to keep moving. Monte, barely surviving the wreckage of his sub, managed to contact his superior. A woman appeared on his screen. Larry, a high-ranking official from the Research Institute. To Jonas and the others, she was an ally. But in reality, she was the mastermind. Monte, thinking his job was done, reported that Juming's team had been taken care of. But Larry cut him off. "They're still alive," she said coldly, "and they're coming straight for the base." At that moment, Jonas's team was only a kilometer away. But as they entered the final stretch, the glowing sea creatures vanished, leaving them exposed in total darkness. Switching to low-frequency lighting, they pushed forward cautiously. Oxygen levels were critical. Every second counted. Then the sonar blared. Something was coming. They turned and ran. But outrunning a swarm of deep-sea predators? Impossible. Jonas made a snap decision. He ordered the team to stop and face the threat head-on. But the sheer number of attacking fish was overwhelming. Mai-an, the pilot, was swarmed. Her dive suit was on the verge of being ripped apart. Jonas lunged to save her, but in the chaos, her helmet visor shattered. Water flooded her mask. Juming had no choice. He fired a flare to drive the fish away. But the burst of light attracted something far worse. A massive prehistoric super predator was closing in. Juming made a split-second decision. He would sacrifice himself to lure the beast away. But before he could act, Jonas yanked the flare from his hand and hurled it in another direction. The team raced toward the base, ignoring the sound of the rear hatch shattering as the Meg slammed into it. With the monster closing in, they had no choice but to dive headfirst toward the airlock, tumbling and scrambling to stay ahead. But the Meg was right behind them. One of their teammates, wounded and slowing down, made a split-second decision. Instead of dragging Juming down with her, she shoved him away. Then, the shark swallowed her whole. Jonas turned just in time to witness the horror. Without hesitation, he grabbed Juming and pulled him forward. The team barely made it to the airlock, but just as they reached safety, the pilot's helmet began to crack. Before anyone could react, her head exploded under the crushing pressure. Juming was frozen in shock, but Jonas didn't stop. He sealed the airlock just in time. They stripped off their dive suits and checked the facility, but the place was deserted. Sophia immediately tried to contact the command center, while Juming scoured the base for clues. What he found was insane. Rare earth minerals, high-value ores, even materials worth billions. These bastards, they're trying to gut the planet. Sophia pulled up the security feed and made a critical discovery, an emergency escape pod in the northern sector. It was their only way out. The team moved fast. But on the way, Juming noticed something that made his blood run cold. A prototype diving suit, his own design. This tech was still classified. There was a traitor inside the Research Institute. They finally reached the escape pod, only for the doors to slam shut. A monitor flickered on. San's face appeared. She smirked. "You should have seen this coming." San had been working for Larry all along. She'd led them here, into a trap. "I don't want to make this messy," she said. "We've worked together for a long time. Just cooperate, and we can all make a fortune." Jonas didn't even blink. "Go to hell!" San sighed and launched the first escape pod, cutting off their options. Then she turned to Rigas. "Kill Jonas, or I launch the second pod." But Rigas hesitated. He couldn't do it. San's expression darkened. She cut the oxygen supply and opened the flood valves. Water started pouring in. They had to cut off San's control manually. But the control room was already flooding. Someone needed to swim through the icy high-pressure water without a suit. Jonas stepped forward. "I'll do it." Rigas gave him a tip. "If you let water fill your sinuses, you can survive 60 seconds. Jonas took one final breath and dived in. Freezing water rushed over him, crushing his lungs. He forced himself to exhale, pushing forward against the pressure. By sheer luck, or sheer main character energy, he made it to the control room. But he wasn't alone. Monty was waiting for him. The second Jonas stepped inside, Monty attacked. The two men crashed into each other, fists flying in the cramped space. In the struggle, they activated the ore crusher. Massive gears began grinding. If either of them slipped, they'd be shredded. Monty, using every ounce of strength, tried to shove Jonas onto the conveyor belt. But Jonas grabbed a chunk of ore and smashed it into Monty's skull. Monty staggered. Jonas, not taking chances, slammed him against the machine. Then he ran for the controls. Just as he was about to sever San's connection, Monty lunged. Jonas was done playing games. One final blow. Monty was out. Jonas hit the switch. Controls severed. The team was safe. Now there was only one escape pod left. Not enough for all of them. Luckily, Monty's submarine was still docked. But there was a problem. Its hydraulics were leaking, and the anti-shark system was offline. Without that system, they wouldn't make it. Juming had a plan. "We light up the base. Draw the sharks here." They flipped every switch. The entire facility lit up like a beacon. It worked. Within seconds, the Megs went berserk. Boom! The sharks smashed into the base, shaking it to its core. Juming sprinted for the sub, diving inside just as the base collapsed. The team sped away. As they ascended, they saw something terrifying. A massive tear in the ocean's thermocline. Juming checked the readings. "It'll take an hour to close." That was too long. Something else was coming through. Then, he saw it. They weren't alone. Meanwhile, in the last escape pod, Monty was still alive. Jonas clenched his fists. He really needed to start finishing the job. Larry's team was already in motion. A helicopter closed in on the command center, carrying mercenaries. Their objective? Cut off all escape routes. Meanwhile, Mike and DJ uncovered a hidden backup log, and what they found was shocking. San had sabotaged the rescue boat. A sudden knock on the door. Mike and DJ grabbed their stun guns. The moment they opened the door, they fired. But their targets weren't down for long. San stood there, flanked by 3 armed mercenaries. They weren't captured, but it didn't matter. Larry's forces had taken control of the command center. As soon as Jonas and his team surfaced, they sensed something was off. They moved silently through the crowd before infiltrating the command center. Jonas and Juming split off to find Mike and DJ, while Rigas and Sophia searched for a boat, their only way out. Meanwhile, Monty arrived at the control center. Mike and DJ fought off their pursuers, but the second they stepped inside, they were ambushed. Then Juming stepped forward, speaking in rapid Chinese. Monty's men didn't understand. That was the plan. Jonas struck from behind. A few well-placed hits, and the team was free. Elsewhere, Rigas found a boat. But then, the water moved. Something massive was approaching. The Megalodons had arrived. Glass shattered. The base buckled. San? She never stood a chance. A Meg smashed through the station, swallowing her whole. The team jumped on the boat and paddled away, quietly. Then, a shadow rose from the deep. A Meg was coming for them. Behind them, Larry's mercenaries gave chase in another boat. But they left the engine running. A Meg ripped through the water. Before they even realized their mistake, they were gone. Jonas and his team escaped, heading toward Fun Island. But they weren't safe. The second they set foot on the beach, Jonas saw it. The Meg was coming. He shouted, "Everyone, get off the beach!" Screams, chaos, then carnage. One bite. Dozens of tourists gone. Jonas turned to Mayan. "Hide! If they see you, they'll panic more." Meanwhile, he, Juming, and Mike sprinted for the jet skis. The plan? Lure the Meg away. Juming and Mike weren't convinced. "We need weapons, otherwise we're dead." On the other side of the island, Larry and her guards arrived. They never stood a chance. The Meg tore through them like paper. Larry tried to escape by helicopter, but she didn't make it. The Megs dragged her from the sky and ripped her apart. Jonas revved up a jet ski and took off. The Meg locked onto him. It charged. Jonas swerved. Too late. Bam! The Meg slammed into him, sending him flying. He hit the water, scrambling to get back on. But the engine was dead. He turned. The Meg was inches away. Then, vroom! The engine roared to life. Jonas sped off, barely escaping. Back on land, Juming and the others searched for weapons. Then, they ran into Monty's men, surrounded. Juming noticed something, a switch on a nearby control panel. He elbowed DJ, hard. DJ, wincing, stumbled back, hitting the switch. A hatch burst open. Screeching horrors flooded the room. Monte's men panicked. Gunfire, screams, chaos. Juming and his team used the distraction to escape. A fuel barrel exploded, obliterating everyone in its blast radius. Amidst the chaos, Juming grabbed a container of ammonium nitrate and sprinted toward the helicopter. Out at sea, Jonas was in a life-or-death battle with the Meg. He pulled out a harpoon packed with explosives and hurled it at the beast. The Meg roared in pain and immediately changed course. Jonas hit the throttle, chasing after it on his jet ski. A single thrash from the Meg sent a massive wave crashing forward. Jonas used the momentum, launching himself into the air. Mid-flight, he gripped his steel harpoon, aimed, boom! The Meg was obliterated in a fiery explosion. It was so over the top, it made Michael Bay movies look subtle. Juming reached the helicopter, but a reptilian beast was closing in. Thinking fast, he let out a high-pitched call, luring it away. Mike seized the moment, starting up the helicopter. But the creature wasn't backing down. Juming grabbed a metal pipe and charged at it. A vicious struggle broke out. He fought with every ounce of strength before finally taking the creature down. But then, an entire pack of them appeared. Juming booked it back to the helicopter, barely making it inside as they lifted off. Just as they thought they were safe, the chopper lurched. Juming looked out. The fuel hose was still attached. He climbed out, struggling to detach it. Then, a reptilian creature leaped onto the helicopter. The aircraft swerved wildly, nearly throwing Juming off. Thinking fast, he grabbed the fuel hose and sprayed gasoline right into the beast's face. Mike saw his chance. He fired his gun. Boom! The creature exploded in flames. Juming barely managed to pull himself back inside the chopper. But their relief was short-lived. Back on the beach, a new horror emerged. An enormous octopus. Jonas, already exhausted from battling the Meg, barely had time to react. At the same time, Monty arrived, making things even worse. A high-speed chase broke out on the water. The octopus lashed out with its tentacles, grabbing terrified tourists left and right. From above, Juming spotted Sophia in trouble. "Lower the chopper!" he shouted. They maneuvered in, trying to pull her up. But just as she reached for the helicopter, a tentacle coiled around it, yanking it toward the ocean. Juming knew what he had to do. He grabbed a homemade explosive and jumped. As he plummeted toward the ground, the helicopter, along with Mike, crashed into the water. At the same time, Jonas leaped onto a ship's deck, dodging a brutal Meg attack. Seeing Monty nearby, Jonas grabbed a sharp wooden plank and impaled him. Blood spilled into the water. The scent caught the Meg's attention. Monty barely had time to scream before the beast swallowed him whole. Meanwhile, Juming was being crushed by the octopus's tentacles. Sophia tossed him a bomb just in time. As the tentacles tightened around him, Juming shoved the bomb deep into the creature's body. Boom! The octopus thrashed violently, its tentacles wrapping around the remaining Megalodon. The two monsters turned on each other. A brutal underwater battle ensued, and neither survived. Juming barely escaped, rescuing Mike from the wrecked helicopter. Then Jonas spotted another Megalodon charging toward Juming and Mike. Thinking fast, he grabbed a massive metal scrap and smashed it against the rocks. The Meg turned toward him instead. What happened next was straight up insane. Jonas ran straight at the charging Meg and drove the jagged metal straight through its skull. The monster collapsed, sinking into the abyss. As the survivors swam toward shore, a dark shadow loomed beneath them. Another Megalodon. Juming tensed, then suddenly realized it was Heike. Instead of running, he dove underwater and signaled with his clicker. To everyone's shock, Heike turned and swam away. Juming smirked at Jonas. "Told you I had a bond with her." Jonas rolled his eyes. "Dude, she was just chasing dolphins." They laughed, finally reaching the shore. And just like that, this wild, over-the-top adventure came to an end. This movie was a big-budget B-movie on steroids. If you ignore the zero-logic science and ridiculous plot, the visual effects and action sequences were fun enough. At the end of the day, it's China Hollywood's over-the-top monster fest. As one viral review put it, Jonas rips a Megalodon apart with his bare hands. The Chinese audience calls it taming the beast through virtue. If humanity ever reaches this level of combat ability, taking over the galaxy would be easy. At this point, this movie is less sci-fi, more comedy.
Today's story comes to an end, but the journey of exploring great movies continues. If you enjoyed this content, don't forget to hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any exciting upcoming videos. Also, leave a comment sharing your thoughts on the movie. Your support is the biggest motivation for me to create even more quality content. See you in the next video.